So we just finished celebrating Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, which was on January 15th. We all know that Martin Luther King is an icon of the U.S. civil rights movement. He embodied Mahatma Gandhi's techniques of nonviolent campaigns to create an awareness and change in segregation in the USA. Did you know that this is the season for nonviolence? This was launched at the United Nations in 1998, and it marks the annual 64 calendar days between the memorial anniversaries of the assassinations of both Mahatma Gandhi on January 30th and that of Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th. Isn't it a powerful time to look at violence and making the choice to be nonviolent during that time period? The season teaches that every person can move the world forward in the direction of peace through daily nonviolent choices and actions. Many of us have learned about Mahatma Gandhi in school, and we know that he was born in India in 1869 and was assassinated January 30th, 1948. He is known as an Indian lawyer, politician, social activist, and a writer who became the leader of the nationalist movement against the British rule in India. This, my friends, it was a violent prospect to go against imperialism. He was known for his campaigns of boycotting and fasting and social nonviolent campaigns against British rule. Gandhi became known as the great mediator and reconciler, as he strove for unity between the many different Indian castes, also between the Hindu people and the Muslims. His work was significant in the fight for India to be independent of Britain. And in 1947, the Indian people were granted dominion. He was the catalyst, if not the initiator, of 3 of the major revolutions of the 20th century. The movements against colonialism, racism, and violence. Both of these men struck a bold posture of love and light as they tried to create significant changes in the world for peace, respect, and equality. I'm going to tell you a story, and it's attributed to Gandhi during his struggles in India. One day, a British clergyman, well known for being an imperialist, met Gandhi. Trying to paper over the gulf of disagreement between them, he said, "Well, we are both men of God, Mr. Gandhi, aren't we?" Gandhi replied, "You are a politician disguised as a man of God. I am a man of God disguised as a politician." Isn't that amazing? Well, then this brings a question to mind today. So what is the question today? Well, the question becomes, are you a human being disguised as a spiritual being? Or are you a spiritual being disguised as a human? If you are angry and calling for the blood of those you feel have caused you or yours pain and injustice, then, my friend, you are waiting in the egoic mind of your humanity. And your answer to this question is that you are a human being disguised as a spiritual being. Jesus taught us to shift our consciousness from vengeance to being love in the world as the expression of the divine. On his famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is said to have spoken about adultery, retaliation, enemies, and anger. In each of his instructions to us, he overturned the unconscious laws that existed before. He called for a new understanding and a new way of being with each other that is filled with love, compassion, and care. Let's look at just one snippet of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. This is from the New Testament, Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 and 39. It is written, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also." You see, Jesus is telling us ours is to forgive the small injustices and not to insist on retribution or punishment, really, unless it's something that's necessary for the public good. Our beingness is to be the law of love. This doesn't mean folks aren't accountable for their behaviors. Of course they are. But ours isn't to seek vengeance. By our decision of where and how we show up, we can also make a conscious choice to avoid the hurt as it concerns the care of ourselves and our family. You see, if we are seeking revenge, we've lost our way. If we are holding on to slights, hurts, and resentments, we have forgotten that we are spiritual beings disguised as humans. We know as spiritual practitioners that we are to be the leaders in a new way of being love in the world. Being love in the world is really easy when things are going our way. But exceptional spiritual leaders mean being love in the world when there are injustices, when there is pain and fear. This is what the Christ is calling us to be. Where do you put your trust? Where do you put your trust, my friends? Do you trust God's power to protect you, to guide you, and to keep you safe? This is about letting the small slights go, the things you can easily let go of, the things that aren't really important. And if it really is a large injury, of course, seek reparations, but do so without the thought of revenge. It needs to be from a place of good intentions. We did not come here to be judge and jury of each other. That's God's remit. We came to be the expression of the divine, which means we have come to be love in the world. And as we deal with the turbulence of our country, of the economy, of our own expectations of how we think the world should be, we always have the choice to be the light. We have the choice to be benevolent and nonviolent. And so during this season of nonviolence, I invite you to use these 64 days to be love in action. The Association for Global New Thought, also known as AG&T, is spearheading a campaign to support you in the practice of nonviolence, one step at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. Each day we make nonviolent choices and actions, we strengthen and build the character of a nonviolent human being. This is how we each in our own way move the world in the direction of peace. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "Practice watering seeds of joy and peace, and not just seeds of anger and violence, and the element of war in all of us will be transformed." Each day this week, make a choice to meet each experience with an intention for peace. Nonviolence begins by learning how to be less violent and more compassionate towards our own being, and allowing that evolving self to act in the world with mature understanding. In learning to speak and act with self-respect, honor, and reverence, we find the courage to lift those who are underserved or unrepresented in the name of justice for all. So each week, you can find a prayer for peace at the AG&T website. And this week, prayer from the heart can achieve what nothing else in the world can. And this is from Gandhi. So begin and end each day this week with a prayer for peace. Let peace begin with you. Now, if you want more information, there's a lot of meditations and prayers and affirmations at the AG&T website, and you can find that at agt.today. Now, my friends, I invite you during this season of nonviolence to make those conscious choices, to be the spirit, the spiritual being having a human experience. Blessings.